Hey kids, it's ENGLENTINE here, and it looks like Bleeding Cool is at it again. However, this time, instead of doing a hit piece on diversity in comics, he's decided to just do a hit piece on the entire comic book skeptic community. Before we get started, I would like to apologize. I'm still at the hotel, and because it's being recorded so late, the family's asleep, and I'm at the pool, so you may hear pump motors and such like that. Alrighty, so the hit piece here this time around is called Twitter Says It's Cracking Down on Abusive Accounts, but It's Not Doing Enough by Joe Glass. We all have heard of him. Twitter has become the ubiquitous aspect of comics industry and community, from advertising new project interactions between fans and creators and sharing artwork. I think he meant for, not from. Hell, we here at Bleeding Cool get an absurd amount of our stories from that social media site alone, and that's actually why I'm on it too, because occasionally I hear about crap like this. Of course, one thing with the platform becoming such a vital part of the comics industry is that it becomes 100% necessary for a member of the community to be a part of it, even when it allows more damaging and hurtful elements to be a continued part of the platform, and that's agreeable also. That's for any creator of anything. Sure, you want the positive experience, but you also drag in the negative sometimes. Sadly, Twitter is continually turning a blind eye to the growing concern in the comics community. Numerous accounts repeatedly set out to launch hate campaigns against creators, critics, and even fellow fans. But we're not seeing Twitter do much about it at all, and I completely agree with this. People like Magdalene Visaggio has been able to just spew their vile without any repercussion, while people on our side continuously get blocked and sometimes suspended. And here is where the fantasy begins. Some user accounts seem entirely set up to continue to harass numerous creators for their perceived failings. Some of these users are taking a concerted stand firmly against increasing diversity in the comics medium, both within the content and the industry. Now, this is saying that all complaints are only about the fact that somebody is not a white Christian male, which is further from the truth. Some of these users show massive distaste for any female characters being represented as anything other than bathing suit wearing cheesecake TA fodder, even pushing back against the diversity of female body presentation. No, what we're pushing it back against is the lack of female body representation. In modern-day Marvel Comics, a feminine woman cannot be strong. So they usually draw, especially with Captain Marvel, as we've been seeing, she's been looking less and less feminine as she goes along. And she is being propped up as Marvel's premier character. So she is the prime example of a strong woman cannot be feminine. Kitty Pryde from the X-Men is a prime piece of evidence for this to be true. As the time has gone by, she's gotten more flat-chested, more flat-butted, shorter hair. Her musculature is broadened to resemble that of a man's. And in this picture alone, you see right next to her a woman who's not in a leadership position looking like a woman. And it's this kind of sexism that Ron Glass from Bleeding Cool supports and that we are fighting against. Particularly disturbing, however, is the user's continued and targeted harassment of trans creators in the medium, and Twitter's refusal to stop it. It doesn't matter how many times they are reported, Twitter continues to allow the continued harassment of a group of people, and it's genuinely starting to look like they just don't care. Now, harassment is not what's going on. Calling out is. The tweet I just showed you from Magdalene Visaggio, or whatever her name is what was being brought up. So, once again, why does Ron Glass of Bleeding Cool support violence towards other people? He's not against it. He just wants to be able to say it's okay for them to be violent towards those people. If he was actually against the violence, he would be calling it out no matter who in the comic book community was doing it. However, part of the problem stands in that the harassers are wise to Twitter's rules of conduct, particularly this rule. Hateful conduct. You may not promote violence against or directly attack or threaten or other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or disease. As long as they do not explicitly make threats to the lives of their victims or suggest violence upon them, then these users can sneak past Twitter's rules on hateful conduct, which means, and he's just admitting here, that nobody is breaking the rules. Even if you are being a douche up to the point where you can pull back and you don't break the rules, you're not breaking the rules. Now, I understand that some people in our community have been crass. I understand that, they've used words that probably should not be used, but if they're not breaking the rules, then they're not breaking the rules, and the ones who have been taken care of. Whether we agree with it or not, that has happened. Hell, it's happened to Cummings so many times, he might as well change his page name to Account Suspended. But that's not good enough for Ron Glass of Bleeding Cool. Apparently, he wants people suspended or thrown completely off because, well, you know what? He just does not agree because he's not actually putting forth any evidence of anything that he's saying here. It is all just conjecture and speculation. Unfortunately, we have seen this before. Gamergate. Oh, good. Here comes the crazy. Saw the same tactics used both in circumventing Twitter's rules around conduct and in targeting and harassing people of color. Oh, okay, he's bringing out the race car now. Women, trans women, and other members of the LGBTQ community. We're going to need names and faces and quotes on all of that, please, in order to make this story actually have any weight and truth to it. And while Twitter may be an American-originated company, it's now a global concern, and the rules of freedom of speech and such are not the same throughout the globe. So what is he suggesting here? That we follow another country's idea of what freedom of speech should be? Or is he suggesting that freedom of speech is not good? How is it, Ron Glass, that a writer may actually be suggesting that freedom of speech is not good? Or is it just their freedom of speech is not good and yours is okay? What's really the problem here is it seems like Ron Glass of Bleeding Cool Comics wants to curb some people's free speech because he says it's hateful. But what he doesn't realize is that eventually somebody's going to look to him and say your free speech is hateful and therefore you should not have it either. There is no slippery slope. Once you give up your right for free expression, it's done. Those who make the laws own you, lock, stock, and barrel. At this stage, Twitter really needs to take a look at their rules of conduct and consider the threats of death and violence are one thing, but targeted harassment, psychological and emotional abuse, and actual use of hate speech can be equally as harmful. It needs to take a firmer stance on those who would use that to harm vulnerable members of the community. Like people who don't work for Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics and their creators are not vulnerable. Heather Antos, the subject of Make Mine Milkshake, ended up getting the world to surround her with good feelings and pictures of everybody drinking on no evidence whatsoever. And she actively doxed diversity in comics. The subject of Bleeding Cool's last misinformed hit piece. That if anyone here dares to call her out on that, we are the ones that get labeled sexist, racist, yada yada. Back in 2016, Twitter started the Twitter Trust and Safety Council, wherein it partnered with numerous groups working to make Twitter a safer place for users to be. However, it is arguable that 2016 saw a sudden increase in the amount of hugely visible abusive tweets and harassments on the platform. So basically, they got a whole bunch of people, probably like YouTube, of a certain political influence to go after people of another certain political influence. Then in February 2017, Twitter said this: stopping the creation of new abusive accounts. We're taking steps to identify people who have been permanently suspended and stop them from creating new accounts. This focuses more effectively on some of the most prevalent and damaging forms of behavior, particularly accounts that are created only to abuse and harass others. And in July, Twitter reported that people are experiencing significantly less abuse on Twitter today than they were 6 months ago. The statement went on to say, "We're now taking action on 10 times number of abusive accounts every day compared to the same time last year. We also now limit account functionality or place suspensions on thousands more abusive accounts each day." And once again, we need clarification on what they mean, because obviously, by the tweets I've been showing here from the comic book creators, the comic book community this guy say is being harassed, they are still there. They're still spouting off all this hatred that Ron Glass from Bleeding Cool Comics supports. Because he's only talking about one side here, ladies and gentlemen. It is not the comic book creators. They can get away with anything. So where's Twitter? He's right. Where is Twitter on these things? So anyway, he continues to say, people of color are finding themselves the continued targets of deeply threatening Twitter users who seem to get off without consequences. Okay, who? Who is saying this? Who in our community is doing this? Point them out. I've gotten in trouble with people in this community already for pointing out stuff that I thought, well, wait, that's going to reflect badly on the group. So whoever's being racist and calling this out, we need names and citations, please. Don't just say this like it's a fact when it's not. Alrighty. It goes on to say, Twitter says it's cracking down, but it appears the time and the resources truly needed to take care of the situation are not being invested. Now, he does not know this, but he did say appears. The more they look the other way when it comes to these accounts, the more they are actively endangering the mental and emotional health and well-being and even livelihoods of many of these creators, critics, and fans. Twitter must try harder. I'm sorry, but you know, they're grown-ups. They're adults. Sticks and stones, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're an adult and you're getting emotionally hurt because they called me a name, that's on you. But that's just my opinion on this whole crazy thing. What did you think? Did you think I was right on some things? Did you think I was wrong on some things? Let me know in the comments below. I love the debate and the discussion. Also, if you like this video, you want to see more, click like, share, subscribe to see more. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Also, don't forget to head on over to Patreon or VidMe. Drop $1 into the till so we can keep making these videos that we like to do here. And we'd like to thank everybody who has done that already, and thank everybody who will do that, and most importantly, thank everybody for taking the time out to watch our videos.